Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari, and I want to talk about the most surprising, best, and worst reads I had in 2023. So I've got 5 of the best, 5 of the worst surprises. No particular order, but I'm going to alternate them. Let's start with the bad, and the first one for the bad I'm going to talk about is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chachki. I read the synopsis of this, I started reading the book, and the writing is one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced in my life. So I just entirely expected to instantly fall in love with the whimsical writing and the story of this book, but I absolutely hated it. The 2 main characters in the story are very codependent people, very codependent on each other. They don't communicate. So I don't understand why they're so obsessed and codependent on each other when they don't know anything about each other. Like, she doesn't care about him as a person. She doesn't care about his hobbies or his past or anything like that. She asks no questions and then tells him that he's not allowed to ask anything about her past. But he's a reporter, he's curious, he wants to know, and he tries to respect her boundaries, but he's not very good at it. And overall, the beautiful story that I wanted to read and that was kind of somewhere in the background was just completely destroyed by this awful relationship. So, very disappointed. I will probably give this author another chance, but I'm not excited to give her another chance, if that makes sense. Let's swing into good, and I'm going to talk about Old Country by Matt and Harrison Query. I got this in a book box, and this story didn't look particularly interesting at all to me when I was reading the synopsis, but somebody who watched the video, her name is CatBlack394, said that it was a fun read, and I was kind of surprised. I was just like, oh, I'm not looking forward to this. But she was right. This kind of was a fun read that I completely didn't expect. This follows kind of like a good old boy type character on a ranch up in the Tetons, and I expected him to be like, you know, big MAGA, big racist, kind of a misogynist, and he was a little bit of that. Not too bad, but a little bit of that, and he was kind of punished for it. And I was kind of down with that. So, it was a weird, not particularly horrific, more weird horror than horrific horror. But I wasn't mad at it. Pleasantly surprised. Let's go with another bad surprise. And that's going to be How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I, for the most part, have had really, really good luck with Grady Hendrix books. I would consider him one of my favorite horror authors until this year. Everything I've read by him this year was horrendously bad. This not excluded. First off, the main problem with this is I feel like it's mismarketed, even within the title. This is not about a haunted house. The house is not haunted. It's a haunted doll. Or a possessed doll. Whatever. But I'm going into this expecting a haunted house story, a ghost story, and instead I get a possessed doll, and that's not what I wanted. It's creepy. I probably wouldn't have picked this book up if I would have known ahead of time that it was about a possessed doll, because it's just not of interest to me. I was so hyped up to be so let down. Next up for a good surprise is The AntiRelationship Year by Kate Wismere, or Katie Wismere. Some of her books say Kate Wismere, some of them say Katie Wismere, so I will just randomly choose which one of her names I go with. This is a contemporary romance, and I am not known for liking contemporary romance. I read the first book in this duology, unrelated, like you can read them as standalones, but they're set in the same universe and kind of have a small overlap of characters, but I didn't expect really much of anything, like maybe a mid book at best for this, and I actually enjoyed it. I liked this story. I liked the characters, I liked the romance. It was cute, and I went into this expecting nothing and got far more than I expected. The next book, this one was a doozy. I hated Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. This is the third book in the Last Hours trilogy, and it's thick. This is a lot of pages to read to ultimately hate it. Now, I like Shadowhunter novels for the most part. Some of them I like more than others, but in this universe, it's a very interesting way that she tells this story. So there's two different time periods that we really see in the Shadowhunters universe. We have a modern day time that's set in the US. The first six or so books are set in New York, and then there's another trilogy that's set modern day in California. And then you have 6 books in this setting, which is Victorian England. So they're set in London and they're in the past. So you will have information in the modern day settings that talk about their ancestors or previous Shadowhunters that are this London community. There's also some overlap because warlocks in this universe live forever, and so you'll have warlocks that existed in this time, but they also exist and live in modern day time. So my major problem with this is there is a family tree that exists in the modern day books that cover these characters, right? And Cassandra Clare decides she doesn't want people to predict the ending of her book and which characters will end up together and who will live and who will die. So in the middle of this book, she invalidates that family tree by saying that was made up by a little kid and it's not a real family tree. And then now she has just carte blanche to kill off as many characters or have people end up with like different significant others than we predicted. And that is the cheapest just cop-out of a storytelling trope. And it pissed me off. First off, this series was already like not making me happy because of the just vast miscommunication. And then to like throw that in there where they're like, haha, now we can kill some of your favorite characters because I'm gonna put in this stupid trope. I was like, screw you. So I hated this book. I was not happy. I was not happy at all. Next up in books that were surprisingly good is The Perishing by Natasha Dion. I was surprised this was so good because this is a 2.8 on Goodreads. That is, anything under a 3-star is shockingly low for Goodreads. And for this to be like a whole 0.2 under a 3-star is like, it's guaranteed to be a bad book, but it wasn't. It was just mismarketed. This is advertised as like a science fiction, and it has science fiction tropes in it. Like the main character she's never born. She just randomly shows up in a new time period as a 17-year-old girl. So time travel-ish immortal tropes in there, but that's not really the point of the story. This is more lit fic than anything. So I think people are going into this expecting like heavy sci-fi themes, and they're just getting literary fiction with this tiny sprinkling of sci-fi over the top. I really enjoyed this book, surprisingly, considering how low it's rated. I gave this 4 stars. Next up in our list of bad surprises is The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. Yes, I didn't like a Sanderson book. Now, this isn't like the worst book in the world by any means, and I know a lot of people don't like the Western Mistborn, but I liked the Western Mistborn up until this point. Like, I like Wax and Wayne. I wasn't mad about that. I was mad about mostly the end of this book. For some reason, Sanderson couldn't commit. And it seemed like Sanderson wanted to justify his choices. And so there was like 5 or 6 epilogues to this. It's like, just kill off some characters, hurt people a little bit, give me that depressing ending I want. Don't come back with like 5 or 6 epilogues and try to explain away everything you just did and make it seem better than it actually was. Like, why are you doing that to me? Just commit. This is my disappointed face. Another book that I was pleasantly surprised with is another romance. You're not from around here, I am known for just my passionate dislike of contemporary romance, and I actually liked Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Who am I? Basically, there wasn't really any miscommunication in this, and that's what I hate so much about contemporary romance is miscommunication. I can deal with miscommunication done lightly in like fantasy romance, but I just cannot stand it in contemporary romance. And I like the two main characters' banter. That's it. I'm so easy to please when it comes to contemporary romance because I am just constantly burned by it. So, yeah, this wasn't bad at all. The last disappointing read, and this one is like the least disappointing out of all of my disappointing reads because I didn't actually like dislike the book. I was just so hyped up for this book and I don't understand what all this hype is, and that's gonna be Red Rising. And this is kind of a duo thing because it's like Red Rising and Golden Sun because everybody talks about like how amazing and how great Red Rising is, and it was fine. Like, it was okay. But where is the greatness? And then I say that, and then people are like, oh no, Red Rising, the first book, is okay, but Golden Sun is really, really where it gets good. And this is the most amazing trilogy ever. So pick that up. And then I read that, and I was like, it's okay. Sure, I guess. I mean, I didn't hate it. And then people are like, no, pick a Morning Star. Morning Star, the third book in the trilogy, is really good. And I haven't read it yet, so I don't know. And I'm gonna read it next month. But I keep like hearing how great this series is. And it's okay. Where's the great? I'm missing that. My final good surprise is gonna be City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaeffer, because this one, I mean, it's a book box book. I wasn't really expecting much of anything. I was expecting like, you know, mid, maybe like a 2-star. Some of these are good, some of them aren't. But I don't know if you can see this. The cover, like there's a dinosaur here. There's a dinosaur here on the sprayed edges. Overall, it just sounded kind of like goofy. Even the synopsis about a city where nightmares come alive sounded silly. But this ended up being like really good. And it's a really good romantasy, which I wasn't expecting that at all. Who would have thought? But yeah, if this one just sounds goofy to you, you might give it a try because it's way more like romantic and serious than it sounds. Those are my surprise reads for the year. Some good, some bad. And don't worry, worst reads of the year, favorite reads of the year are coming, but not tomorrow. I'm gonna like separate them with other videos. Tomorrow I'll do my TBR. So, yeah. TBR tomorrow. Thank you for being here, and I will see you for that TBR tomorrow. Merry Christmas if you celebrate. Bye!